So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves. We're going to try and make this a bit more conversational, but we'll go along to begin with before we let it all rip. Talk a little bit about your brand, business, and potted history of how you got here. So ladies first, over to you.
Hi everyone. So I'm Natasha Sideris. I'm the CEO and founder of the Tashas group. And we have a couple of brands founded in South Africa with the first one, which is our main brand, Tashas. Sort of an upscale cafe concept. I then moved to Dubai 8-9 years ago and opened the first Tashas. We have 17 Tashas in South Africa, 5 in Dubai. Michael, you have to help me. Is it 5 or 6? I'll make a mistake. 6. And then what we decided to do, because I'm a creative, I really wanted to try and flex my muscles and create other brands and show that the group and the team could expand our forte. So we've got Flamingo Room in the Al Naseem Hotel. I then later opened Avli in the DIFC, together with a bar called the Galaxy Bar, which is now top 50 in the world. We own another brand called Bungalow 34, which we've just opened on the beach. And then in South Africa, we opened a new concept called Le Parc. So we're on quite a big expansion drive, opening our first Flamingo Room collective, which is our retail store, and a new brand called the African Lounge in Diriyah in September. And we are also going to be opening our first Tashas in London in October.
So a quiet year for you.
This year is going to be a hectic year. So we're looking at 11 openings with all the different brands and 7 units across Dubai, the UK, and Saudi.
And you were telling us on the call and last night that you're still in sites, very kind of hands-on.
I am extremely hands-on. Maybe a little bit too hands-on, my team will tell you.
And we'll get onto that in a minute in terms of you recently made quite a senior role in your business, and we'll come on to that in a little bit. So that's great. We'll move over to Chris, if that's okay.
Hi, morning everyone. I'm Chris Miller. I'm the founder and CEO of White Rabbit Projects. We are a hospitality incubator, so we invest in and create restaurant concepts. Currently we have 52 sites across the UK, France, and 2 in Japan now, across multiple brands, so Lena Stores, Cricket, Island Poke, and White Rabbit Hospitality, where we design, develop, and operate bespoke concepts for hotels and landlords. And prior to all this, I was commercial director for the Soho House Group.
Thanks, Chris. We'll shift over to you, Ada.
Hi, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the Future Hospitality Summit, Gurf, James, Jennifer, the whole team. A wonderful job that's been done here and the first time in Riyadh, and great to see such great participation and delegates from all over the world attending here. I am Uday and the CEO of the Food District Company. We established ourselves early last year in 2022. It's a small fund focused on engaging with entrepreneurs in the kingdom, providing them with growth capital, strategic support to scale up and help them achieve their vision and ambition. So we work with multiple entrepreneurs across the kingdom. We have signed a few deals in the kingdom, such as Shawarma Hilal, Salmon and Figs in Jeddah, the Food Junction, and few others in the pipeline. And as we grow, we continue to support them to help them scale up. And as a private equity, of course, our interest is into exit, but mainly value creation and provide them the support that probably the bigger institutions don't look at them because they're at much early stage.
Thank you so much. And last but very not least.
I'm Rizwan Kassim. I'm the founder and the managing director of RIKAS Group. We have today around 15 restaurants based on 3 countries, UAE, Morocco and Greece since last year. We have few brands in cafe, beach club and restaurant as Twiggy, Kima, La Cantine, Mimi Kakushi and Ninive. Just to give you a few of them, and we continue expansion in Dubai and soon, I hope, in Riyadh and Saudi.
And I think that you're downplaying it a little bit. These are very big, bold sites that do very, very big trading, right?
Yes, we're trying, but not as much as Natasha. Huh?
Much busier than mine.
I'm just very aware that for people in the audience that don't know brands, sometimes you have to add those little bits that people feel like they shouldn't say themselves. So there we go. So we're going to get on to that question I made a little while ago. Within a startup and through the process of growth, it's quite clear that there are specific points which become really fundamental when you look back in the history of your business and brand. And it's interesting that one of the big investors out of the UK, Luke Johnson, created or talked about this concept of 7, 17 and 70, where he was talking about these kind of core points where you have to change and fundamentally adapt your business. Being 7, that you had to really start putting more structure in place. 17 almost became a bit more corporate. You probably had to put a lot of overhead in place. And 70 being that you are a corporate and you've got to live with the fact that you're a business before you're a restaurant group necessarily. But, you know, not necessarily around that. I mean, that's one person's view. Pretty interested to understand from you guys where you think for your businesses that you're involved in, those points have been that you had to kind of fundamentally make a change. So should we maybe start with you again?
Okay, well, so my journey has been sort of a mix of what you just talked about, because I started as a restaurateur, aprons on, and I still am. And I think there's got to be a fine balance between taking your business a bit more corporate, which there's certainly a need for. I mean, we've recently appointed a COO who's sitting over here, Michael, and he's helping us bring a bit more structure into the business. I do hate the word corporate, because I think at the heart of it, restaurants are restaurants, and we're here to serve people and make amazing food and design these beautiful spaces. So you got to keep the balance, because there is a risk as you grow and you do become more structured that you can lose that magic. And the reason I say my growth journey has been a bit of a mix is because I started Tashas in 2005, and in 2008 I sold 51% of my brand to South Africa's largest food company, a listed company, and I recently bought my company back, so 3 years ago, because I felt that the corporate process and procedure was extremely stifling, and also I wanted my namesake back. But I certainly think it's a balance. And we are probably at that second phase right now, where we're hiring a lot of people to scale. But I would hate to lose the spirit of what the group's about, which is fundamentally food and serving customers.
And I guess thinking back, you've been through an experience that you weren't happy with, and now you're trying to recreate. I mean, what are the 2 or 3 things that you think you will do differently that will make it a different experience, and how do you create that culture?
Well, I mean, I suppose if we were looking for funding in terms of growth, we certainly wouldn't look to sell a majority. I don't ever want to lose control of the company, and it's not because of a financial control. I don't want to be hamstrung. We are very entrepreneurial, and I'd like to keep that spirit. I'd say that's the main point that we are at now. Yeah.
Great, thank you. How about from your perspective, Rizwan?
You know, in RIKAS, the fact that we create a homegrown concept brings us every time to fighting spirits to recreate a menu, recreate a design, a concept, a brand. So for us, the growth is always driven by the creativity. Talking about finance, I think a milestone that changed the company, it was to convince landlord, real estate developer, and hotelier that we can participate to the journey with them. I am now with 7 different landlords. I am working with soon Hilton, with Marriott, with Hyatt, and maybe Four Seasons. So for us, the growth and finding the finance was always be sure that we can match the control, to be sure that this creativity is a real line that we don't want to compromise. And you know, the Middle East is moving so fast. There's so much more development. They are just looking to have people with a long-term vision. And as soon as you make them understand that we have a long-term vision in the market, I think the door can be open. And this is how we keep, let's say, our independence or the control. And at the same time, we had an interesting growth on the market. So we did that in UAE. It took some time. We opened La Cantine in 2015, Ninive in 2017, and as soon as we opened Twiggy as a beach club, I think the mindset of few of them changed. I remember 10 years ago in the UAE, people was trying to make business, and as soon as it was not working, they used to run away. And we showed to this leadership, landlord, and all the main people in the market that we are here for the long term. So this is what we create in UAE, and I hope this is what we will create in Saudi. But we are here not with a short term, just to make an in and out, but we are here to bring our small contribution to the market.
And do you think that's driven some of your early thinking? You realised that at the beginning you might have a site that's not doing as well as you wanted, or as a business it might not be exactly going the way you want, but you knew you had to stick with it, and because it almost showed the market that it was something, you were a business that could be trusted.
By fact, without having a very strong capital, we need to have compromise. The first compromise was to be focused in the Middle East and not to go in Europe and create another strong aid account and open in London. And it's the dream of everyone to try to expand internationally. But we're still very focused in the Middle East. The second element, I'll just give you an example. I'm not in the Dubai Financial Center. I open in the Creek, we open in Emirates Tower, we open in outside the main core business of Dubai. We are still doing very well. We are still happy. And I think it became a stamp of our company, that you can trust us to go in the difficult element and difficult place, and we can show you that the creativity and the skills of the group can bring you some success. Fantastic, thank you.
And for you, Chris, you've been backing founders and then working with founders and have kind of adapted your model as you've gone. What have been some of the key points? And I think particularly around the point of, it's interesting that as founders and entrepreneurs, often people are like the creative, like the getting in there and getting it done, but aren't necessarily the ones that are going to help scale through. And I guess I'm quite interested to understand at what point you found that people do need to kind of add some of that support service or add more structure?
Yeah, I think I started the opposite way around to Tasha, in the sense of I was in the corporate world, I started in private equity, everything was around systems, process, structure for growth. And then I joined the Soho House Group, where I had half of that beaten out of me by Nick Jones, and it was pure focus on customer experience and product. And so I think the key moment, it was actually just finding the balance of those two disciplines. That if you're creating art for art's sake, that's fantastic and great, but you very rarely make any money from it. And equally, if you are just trying to make money, you very rarely make any. And so when we come to founders, you need that creativity and you need that spark, but it's overlaying the systems, process, structure to then grow those businesses. And it is always it's a conversation and a timing piece, but really spotting the gaps in companies and founders, and then building the support behind that.
Thank you so much. So actually going to move on to our next question, Uday, because I think it was probably more, and I'm aware of the time, which was around the whole capital piece and how people can gain investment and what that structure can look like, and how important it is for people to keep control. Given your background of recently launching a fund and supporting people, what's your view in that respect?
I think one of the key aspects is that a lot of the times investors come in and then they start dictating the way the operator does. But I think it should be left to the entrepreneurs that we identify. There is a certain value that they have set in, certain ambitions they have, and they are driving the operations. So we do provide strategic support. We do want to create corporate structure. Like Tasha said, they are not, it is required, but it should not be the bottleneck to grow the operations. It should be there to support and help them grow rather than prevent them from growing. And at the same time, we do not want to lose the DNA of the entity. Coming in and changing the way that they do the business is not what it's all about. You had a vision, you had a belief, why you invested in that entity or entrepreneur. So it doesn't make sense to come in, take it and pivot them. And a lot of the times we see that the pure investments fund, they look at only the numbers. At Food District Company, we come up with a background. We understand the hospitality industry. We understand the restaurant space. I personally have worked in pretty much all the positions in the restaurant and F&B space. So we do understand that sometimes numbers are important, but at the same time, you need to give them space to grow. There is a J-curve. You need to accept that fact. And it's not, certain corners cannot be cut because it's very vital to growth. So having control of the business is important, but not necessarily trying to twist the entrepreneur entity's arm to change their way of operation or divert them, because then that was, you could have gone and done a startup. Why believe in an entrepreneur entity and invest in them if you're going to try to change them? Our role is to assist them to grow, maintain their identity, DNA, and see how we can help them strategically support them. Supply chain, vertical integration, R&D, finding them resources, locations. So this is where we provide them with value and strategic support.
Thank you. Thinking to the kind of point where you're coming to an investment or you're needing to seek investment, one of the challenges will always be valuation. So there'll be what you're expecting and what you want as a founder, then there'll be what someone's willing to pay, and somewhere in between, the two shall meet. Just really looking, though, to understand, I think I gave an example that a while ago I remember looking at Leon, which is a UK-based brand, QSR brand, and one of their hacks to really driving more brand awareness was being in travel hubs much earlier than their competitors, and it really drove a lot more awareness. Is there examples like that from your businesses where you can say that you made a strategic decision, or you think there's a strategic decision to be made that will help you drive that valuation more? And what have they been?
So I think when you've got multiple brands, that becomes a little bit more difficult, unless you're going to scale those brands, which is always the intention. Unless it's just one massive standalone brand. But the idea is to roll them out. I think having a brand in your portfolio, like we do with Tashas, and then identifying what you can do to clip on value to that brand. So what are the lifestyle things that you can add to the brand? Cookbooks, as an example. We're about to launch a homeware range. And I think those types of things add different revenue streams to that particular brand, and they create awareness. If you look at Leon Foods, one of the first things they did was they launched an incredible cookbook, which I actually have, and that creates a lot of brand awareness. So I think analyzing the brand, and I always talk about brand permission, because not all brands have got permission to do all things. We're certainly not going to go into Tashas. We're not going to start making sports gear. You know what I mean? So you also have to decide what your brand has got permission to do. I think Tashas as a brand has got more permission to be in people's homes, tabletop, than we have permission to be in people's kitchens. So you have to really decide, A, what is your brand permission? What can you do? What makes sense for the brand? What's going to have integrity and authenticity? And then to say, right, what is the timing and when do you expand those things? When do you launch your own coffee? Because that's going to really integrate. When are you going to launch your cookbooks? When are you going to do your tabletop range, if those make sense? I think with standalone concepts like we've got with Flamingo Room, Avli, Bungalow recently, and La Park, it's about then choosing key cities to expand to. As opposed to, because we can't open another Flamingo Room in Dubai, can't open another Bungalow in Dubai. So then choosing key cities to go to, that will raise awareness.
And that's definitely a key growth opportunity, is that one city, one location.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how about for you as well? I'm particularly thinking about your recent internationalization. I mean, to you, has that been a pivotal part of driving what you think is the value of your business?
To go back to the evaluation itself and to give comfort to an investor or someone who can help you to this journey, there's 2-3 things. First, how we can scale the business. I have 12 different brands, and how I can convince someone that my business is sustainable in Europe, in Africa, in Middle East, or in US. The second part is, in terms of evaluation, it's not only about finance. From my side is, what can the partners or the investor bring us on the table? Where we are going together, what is the journey, what is the expansion plan, what can be the proposition that we have on the table. And I'm going back to keeping the control. So I want to do that, but I want at the same time to keep the control to be sure that everything is as per what we want. What gives us some credibility? Natasha gave us a lot of examples of brand awareness and stability on the brand and the success. For us, there is two new line of success and credibility on the market. The first one is to be sure that the high professional who have $1 billion of business in F&B, like hotelier, can create and believe in us. I think that for us it's a strong step. The second one, I just signed a cafe with LVMH to open in Dubai that we'll announce soon. But that
sounds like you just announced it now, to be fair. So.
I will announce the brand soon. But that gives us a lot of credibility on the market when you start to have the biggest luxury company in the world that have an interest on.
So you're having a Dom Perignon champagne bar?
Not sure.
I don't know that. I'm just teasing. So please, if any press are out there, do not publish that. I have no idea. I was just.
No, but there is a strong move from all these brands and fashion brands. We saw Gucci, Prada, Louis Vuitton, and other brands making cafe right now, and they are looking for some pivot on the region and to see how they can grow with the quality and the standard that they have in their shop. So we are here for that, and that gives us a lot of credibility, valuation, multiple EBITDA, or whatever. But
thank you. Just we're at the time, with 30 seconds each, I'm going to come to you two gentlemen at the end. And the last question was about the biggest mistakes you think founders make. So who wants to go first?
Oh, thanks.
You were both trying to you both ignored me. Your eyes drifting. It's like, please don't ask me this. But there you go. Over to you.
All right. Well, I mean, I think having a very clear vision for your brand and moving quickly if it's not working is pretty critical. Out of 54 restaurants, I opened one that was a real disaster, and it did not have a clear vision as to what it was. And we spent far too long trying to repurpose this thing, and ultimately made the decision, closed it down, reopened it as a leaner stores, and it was profitable in its first month. And I think you've got to take ego out of your decision making and very clearly just say, right, this isn't right. What do we do? What do we do next?
Thank you.
Moving quickly.
Perfect.
I think one of the things is the founders, they have the vision, their passion, they follow it, and suddenly when investment houses or deals, they get some kind of capital funding, sometimes lose focus and want to try to diversify. They lose focus on what their initial purpose was. And the second thing is the advisors that they have can be giving them not the exact correct information to take them in the right direction, which kind of blurs their vision, and they lose focus on what reality is. So we see some of this where we have to guide them back to the focus and the original purpose and goal of the operator. So this kind of diversifications or distractions are what we see in a few of the deals that we're participating in or we're reviewing.
Thank you so much. I was just told that we've got a little extension to Q&A because we think that you guys are so interesting. So that's fantastic, isn't it? So, has anyone got a question for any of my esteemed colleagues up here on the panel? We've talked about retailization, diversification, a little bit about the idea of bringing the right team in. I think there's been a lot about the whole entrepreneurs and making sure that if you're investing, back off and leave them to do what they do well. And no ego from Chris. So any, not from Chris, I mean, he was talking about no
also
ego.
Good advice.
Any questions? Please don't be shy. We've got some fantastic people up here. Okay, we must have covered it all. Fantastic. So, thank you so very much. Big round of applause to my panel. Oh, sorry, we have one question there.
You're right, there's 4 rock stars on the stage in our life. These guys are rock stars. It's not a question, it's to thank everybody on the panel for, particularly Tasha, for the contribution that they've made and helped smaller operators such as myself in the guidance that you've given over since COVID, where we've all had a very, very rough ride with our beloved landlords in the UAE. Particularly Tasha, very early on, did a long speech on a caterer webinar guiding us what to do in order to gain rent relief from larger landlords. That was very much appreciated.
Thank you.
And Riz in particular has brought some absolute stardust to everything that he's done, which has been fantastic. So that's not a question, just a thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Thanks,
very
guys.
much to all the panelists. Thank you.